Mariners lose 3-2 to the Toronto Blue Jays. They fall to 11-15 on the season. They've now lost 3 straight. They lose the first game of this series against those Blue Jays. Let's talk about how it happened. Mariners get off to a 1-0 start. Great to see Cal Raleigh homers to right, 365 feet on a low pitch. If you throw the ball below Cal Raleigh, you are risking being taken deep. Unfortunately, their catcher answers right back in the bottom of the second inning with Alejandro Kirk homering off of Luis Castillo in the second. Big Dumper singles to right in the third to give the Mariners a 2-1 lead. Matt Chapman doubles home Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We will certainly talk about that play to make it 2-2. And in the sixth, George Springer singles home Whit Merrifield off of Trevor Gott to make it a 3-2 lead, and nobody else comes home. Okay. I want to talk about why I'm recording this video late. So yesterday was a pretty, on paper, exciting sports day for Seattle. You had the Kraken playing for a chance to win their first ever playoff series at home, chance to clinch it. You had the NFL draft, Seahawks with 2 high picks, or they had 2 high picks on Thursday. They had a high pick in the second round and a mid pick in the second round and a pick in the third. Well, the Kraken stunk, flat out stunk. And the Seahawks overdrafted 2 players and then traded out of the third round. I think the trade was actually really nice, but I was not a fan of either of those picks. I thought that they did a really good job on their draft on Thursday, getting the best cornerback and the best wide receiver on my board. And by the way, I kind of know what I'm talking about. I have covered college football for a very long time. This is not just me. I'm not nearly as, I don't know the right way to say this. I'm not nearly as good at projecting college football players as I am baseball players. I think I'm really good at that. But people pay me to do that. And people paid me to do college football coverage. What I'm trying to say is that I'm not just talking out of my you-know-what. I was not a fan of those picks. Here's hoping I'm wrong. And then the Mariners get a chance to play the first game against Toronto since that amazing 2-game series. One of the biggest moments in Seattle Mariner history, whether we like it or not. And the reason why we wouldn't like it is because we'd like the biggest moments to be world championships, right? Anyway, all 3 laid an egg. But I wanted to record this late because I did not have my full attention last night on the Seattle Mariners. I did not. I was also working 2 to 10. So it was just the perfect combination. I wanted to rewatch this game to make sure I could give you something. Not good. Another pretty poor effort, but let's talk about the positives. I think the biggest positive for me here is that Julio Rodriguez stung the baseball a couple of times. Very nice to see. Very nice to see because he looked lost in that series against Philadelphia, even with a homer. Even with that home run, he did not look like a very good top of the order option. He's going to look like this more often than he doesn't, and that's great. But it's very nice to see some success. It's so funny to be complaining about a hitter with a 775 or 745 OPS. There have been many times where Seattle's had much worse offensive options, but it's different times. And then Big Dumper, who I think has not looked particularly healthy this year, having a big game. Great to see. Great to see. Kelenic getting, I don't want to say I was worried about moving him up in the order, but nice to see a couple of hits. Nice to see a couple of stolen bases. Really like seeing him run more, getting a chance to, put runners in scoring position because the bottom of this order needs it. You're going to have to manufacture some runs with the way this bottom of the order is playing. On the pitching side, I thought Luis Castillo was okay. Not very efficient. I will give him the benefit of the fact that the Toronto lineup is really good and held him to 2 runs. They can hit fastballs with the best of them. Luis Castillo's as good as his slider and change can be. Fastball's an awfully important pitch for him. And they can absolutely wallop some fastballs. Matt Brash was good. Efficient through strikes. Penn Murphy was really good. Really good. And high leverage situations too. It was only a 1-run game. They pitched well. Negatives, real quick on the pitching side. Trevor Gott was not great. Did a decent job holding the Blue Jays to just the 1 run, but it wasn't his best effort. And you're going to see that from Trevor Gott. His ERA is now 2.57. He's not a 2.57 ERA pitcher. And ERA is a flawed stat. I know that. You're going to see some bumps from him. There's a reason why I think you want him working the middle innings in lower leverage situations. And his role will certainly be bumped down when guys like Munoz come back. Not like guys like Munoz, when Munoz comes back. All right, the negatives for the offense. I don't know what's going on with Ty France, man, but it looks bad. I don't want to be too reactionary to this, even though, again, I'm going to say that a bunch, and I'm going to be reactionary. It looks awful. I think you need to consider moving him down in the lineup. Now, I've talked about this on Mollywop Monday a lot. He's an important part of this offense, and you cannot afford him to be a borderline automatic out right now. I mean, those at-bats were awful. Awful at-bats. He's not making hard contact. The only reason his on-base percentage is as high as it is because he's getting plunked a couple of times. Now, look, that Ty France, there's enough of a history there that's not completely luck. You know? But there's just no hard contact, and it's getting frustrating. It's getting frustrating. It is something that I don't know what you really do here. You could consider maybe moving J.P. Crawford into that second spot, but it's not ideal. It's not ideal. By the way, I will say this. So they moved J.P. Crawford into the 7th hole today, and he went 0 for 3 with a walk. I'm not a huge fan of Crawford in the 7th spot. I don't mind getting him more at bats, especially when you've got a bottom of the order that's just garbage right now. I don't love it at 7 because that's more of a spot where I kind of want to run producer, and that's just not J.P. Crawford's game. All due respect to that grand slam. We'll say he made it its outstanding, if slightly overrated defensive play. Like, it was a good play. It was big, too, because it kept a couple of runs off the board. It wasn't that good. It was hyped up on Twitter like this guy just made like an Ozzie Smith type play. I have higher expectations for him defensively. It was a good play. Really good play. Big play, too. Wasn't that great. Teoscar Hernandez, I'm going to give him the benefit of maybe being overhyped returning to Toronto. Woof. Awful today. Or last night, I guess is what we have to say. Really struggled. Jose Caballero overmatched. We got to, if we haven't stopped with the is Jose Caballero a thing, we should by now. And Colton Wong, hey, got on base, but over 3. And I got to tell you, watching that double that scored Vladdy from first base, I'm not 100% sure. In fact, I'm not even 50% sure that a good throw to the plate gets Vladdy out on that play. Really good relay by Julio, by the way, to Wong. But he made it impossible because he made a terrible throw. It's an accurate throw, but it had no velocity on it. None. 0. And unfortunately, I don't know what the answer there is, because it's not like any of their second base options have great arms or anything. But it's just another case of him not making plays. We are 1/6 through the season, almost exactly. One more game. And he's hitting 145, 250, 161 with mediocre defense at best. Mediocre is not kind of bad defense. It's a problem. It is. If it's not a problem, it's becoming one. That's what I titled last video, and nothing has changed in that regard. $11-15. If they win today, that puts them on a 90 loss pace. If they win today, if they lose, it's 96. And I know what you're all going to say. You're all going to say, look at what happened last year. Yep. That certainly happened last year. Really like a lot of this roster. Really believe that this still is a playoff team. But I could not be more disappointed in a start. You know what's giving me a little bit of hope? A lot of really good teams this year look really bad. A lot of really good teams have looked, or teams that look good anyway, have looked really, really bad to start the year. St. Louis is a disaster. Boston, I didn't really think Boston was going to be good. Chicago, who I think a lot of people thought had a chance to win that division, is beyond a disaster. 7-20. San Diego, 13-14, disappointing. Not like the disaster that St. Louis is right now, but like those are teams that a lot of people thought were going to be playoff teams that have looked terrible. Central's a really weird division, by the way. I know I've talked about the NFL draft, the Kraken, and now I'm talking about the AL Central in a Seattle Mariner recap video. But third place in that division might only win 65 games. Crazy. Crazy. But yeah, the Mariners, I thought we're kind of turning a little bit of a corner here, and they clearly have not. And I do think these games I think every game's important because it literally, the difference between making and missing the playoffs can be one game. You can't do the thing where it's like you go back to a game on June 15th and say, oh, if only they would have won that one, because there's going to be games like that they're going to win that they shouldn't have. But I got to tell you, I don't see any games that they've won so far this year that they shouldn't have. I've seen them lose a few games that they shouldn't have. And again, it's another one-run loss. That's 3 in a row. And I can't help but wonder. Can't help it. I don't like thinking about this, but I can't help but wonder, is this the year where the one-run luck wears off? Maybe the Mariners are a better baseball team than they were, but will have a worse record because of poor one-run luck. Poor one-run luck. That's a tougher thing to say than I thought. So today's pitching matchup is Kevin Gausman against Chris Flexen. Not favorable. Going to have to score some runs, I think, today. Or Flexen's going to have to be much better than he has been. Obvious point is obvious, but Cy Young candidate against a guy that shouldn't be in the rotation if everything was right. Please hit like. Please hit subscribe. At Crawford_MALB on the Twitter. RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Please check that out. I'm hosting a bunch lately. It's been a blast. Having a lot of fun. I also have a new column up there. For a lot of you know, I've written about fantasy baseball for a long time. My top 10 fantasy list is back. Really excited about that. So it'll be up every Wednesday on RotoWire. So please check that out. Bad sports day yesterday. I was really excited for that day, and it, unfortunately, life. Say lovey.